As I said, Arthur Miller was only 33 years old when he won a Tony Award and the Pulitzer Prize for Death of a Salesman in 1949. This month, the American classic was revived on Broadway in honor of its 50th anniversary. The star of the revival, Dennehy, who portrays Willy Loman, joins us now for a continuing conversation about an extraordinary play, an American classic, and I am pleased to have him join us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
I have had the honor of seeing this, as you know, and because we ended up sitting next to each other at dinner after the play, and I had a chance to tell you what a remarkable performance it is. I should do this as well. We read on the back of this book what people were saying about the play, which is the genius of the play, but also of your performance. This comes from the New York Times. I will always be haunted by the image of Brian Dennehy as Willy Loman. He seems to kidnap you by force, trapping you inside Willy's psyche. The sublime Elizabeth Fran's astonishing portrayal creates a searing image of a woman fighting for her life. I could hear people not just sniffling, but sobbing. It continues. This from the New York Post. This is Death of a Salesman for the millennium. No humdrum revival, but a re-energizing and reimagining of the emotional tidal wave of play, on and on and on. Watching Brian Dennehy act is a privilege, a towering act, a magnificent. It just goes on and on. It's embarrassing to you, I know.
It's terrible. I hate it.
It's achingly beautiful, overpowering, stunningly acted and directed, a production of staggering poignance and universal truth. You hear people crying? Can you hear them?
Yeah. At different times, too. It's surprising. At the end of the first act, there is a scene in the kitchen when there seems to be some kind of coming together of the family, and then all of a sudden a sharp firefight breaks out, and there's a sudden pause, and the division is made anew between Willie and Biff. And one night, at that moment, when he turns on Willie and tells him to stop screaming, a woman in the third row just started to sob uncontrollably. And you could hear not only her sob, but her husband trying to comfort her. So there are different moments in this play, obviously the end of the play, which is, of course, wrenchingly powerful. But there are other moments in this play where people see something, hear something, experience something that resonates in their own lives. And it deeply affects them, which is the genius of this play. It's about all of us. It's about who we all are and where we've come from.
That's what it's about.
I think so. Yeah, I think that there's not a family in the world. I'm not talking now about the United States, although I think this play has a particular power for American audiences. But China, Norway, England, wherever the play has been done, people have responded in a similar way because it's about a family with all the tragedy and humor and loss and lies and hypocrisy and love that exist inside all of families, every family, everywhere.
Had you played it at any time, on any stage, anywhere before?
No, I never have. Bob Falls, who directed, called me about a year and a half ago and said, let's consider doing this in Chicago, where we have done a lot of things over the years. And I said, sure, let's do it, and we did. And we had no idea at that point that anything was going to materialize beyond Chicago.
In fact, I think I read where they told Elizabeth Fran, this play is not going beyond Chicago.
Well, I think I was the one, because I'm always the best way to, Mel Brooks has the best philosophy of this business, which is hope for the best, expect the worst. And so I'm always the one that said, forget about it, we're not going to New York, yeah. They're not going to see it. Maybe if Kevin Spacey does it, we'll go to New York, or Nicole Kidman. But in any case, I was wrong, and I'm really glad that I was. It's been an extraordinary experience. And the best thing about this is not the reviews and the stories, and, you know, as nice as it is to be here and to get this. The best thing is to go out there every night and play this part, which is like a gift from the gods at my age and at this stage of my career, to be able to play Willie and to explore Willie and to give him to 800 or 900 people every night is, you know, it's just a wonderful thing to happen to me.
Is it in any way a reminder to you of why you became an actor?
Absolutely. I've said this a few times now. As is typical, I think, for a lot of us over the years, and I've been doing this for 30-something years, you lose something along the way. Things get in the way, and you start doing things for all the wrong reasons, and you make decisions that you wouldn't have made when you were 22 or 23 or 25. And this play has reminded me and given me and restored to me something that was very, very important to me when I was a kid, and I had lost, or lost sight of, or lost the grasp of. One of the things that I love about working with Mr. Miller is that he's a guy who has never lost that. It would have been easy for him at some point to start writing movie scripts, to write for television, to do. He's not interested in that. He has the same ambitions today that he had 40 years ago, which is to write for the theater, which is a very special place to write for. And that had been, I'd kicked that around. I'd lost it.
You'd gone off and did all that.
And this brought it back to me. And it's like I say, it's a gift. It's been a gift given to me beyond all value that I can possibly measure.
Do you think in any way it'll be a life-changing kind of experience for you?
No, I think that, no, I don't mean that. So many people interpret what I say as saying, well, you mean that this is a shot in the arm for your career. I'm not talking about that.
I don't mean that, a shot in the arm to say, if you acknowledge that you've missed something and it reminds you of something, you may want to do it again.
Yeah, I think that what it does for me is to say, do more work in the theater. Try more things in the theater. There are a whole bunch of things that I want to do now, having done this. And Bob and I will do them. I mean, I have been working in the theater for 15 years with very, very difficult projects, but mostly in Chicago. This is the first time that we've been able to have this kind of a success in New York. But I needed to be reminded of things. I needed to be reminded of why I started out doing this in the first place. And this has definitely given that back to me.
Tell me that one more time, why you started doing this in the first place.
Well, I don't think anybody sets out to be an actor, certainly if you look like me. Maybe it's different if you look like Brad Pitt, but if you look like me, you don't set out to be an actor because you say, gee, I can make myself a couple $100,000 a year and live very nicely. I mean, obviously, for someone like me to say that, you know, the next stop is a rubber room someplace. I became an actor because I couldn't possibly think of anything else that I wanted to do, which is the only reason you should do it. And there were a lot of years where I was driving cabs and working in bars and driving trucks and, you know, a guy who had a Columbia education doing all these things. My father was not terribly happy about all of that, and there was no way to explain it to him. And eventually, after 10 years, I became an overnight success. And things started to happen.
What was that in?
Oh, actually, it wasn't. The funny thing is, it was a Chekhov play, Ivanov. I played Borkin, which is not a large part. But Mel Gusso in the New York Times gave me a great review, and it led to an agent, and one thing led to another, and you know, which is the way it happens. It's regardless. I have had a very happy and very rewarding life in this business that I've chosen, but along the way something got lost, and not completely lost, because as I say, I did these plays in Chicago, which were always wonderful experiences. But this is something else. This is a whole different thing.
Because it's Broadway, because it's this play, because...
No, because it's this play. I mean, I'm glad that the whole point about Broadway is that this is the place. I mean, you know, when you're 22, when you're watching the Tony Awards and sitting surrounded by your family, having written an acceptance speech that, you know, that you know how you would say it if you had the chance. And then all of a sudden, 40 years later, all of a sudden, you're on Broadway and you're doing this extraordinary part. And you now realize at age 60, which I am, that what's important is going out there tonight and doing the play, playing the play. Not the words, not the reviews, not the ads, not the interviews. Playing the part is the important thing. And being in this production, being a part of this production, being a part of this play, being a part of the history of this play, it's a wonderful gift, and thank you for it.
Thank you for that performance. I think I would like to mention, I think, that this production came out of Chicago, which is interesting. You know, in the old days, everything came out of New York. Right. That was the rationale behind Broadway, that everything in America in the theater was originated here. Now, nothing originates here. It's all coming from someplace else. Mm. And it's a sad commentary.
Well, you've said something else, Arthur, which I think is important to repeat here, which is that Arthur said one day, you know, the tragedy of the theater is, A, this play wouldn't be written today, and if written, it wouldn't be produced.
Sure. Because
of the number of people in the cast and for all the economic reasons that, you know, that you see 2- and 3-character plays and so forth. And, of course, the other major tragedy is if a kid's got talent, he wants to go write for Friends. You know, he wants to be Seinfeld. The idea of writing for the theater, I remember when I was a kid, and you had Inge and you had Williams and Miller, that the theater was a place that was the cutting edge of ideas and culture, the whole idea of thinking what this country was about and who we were all about. The theater was very much a live part of that, and that's been lost, and it's a tragedy. It's too bad. That's why this play is so powerful. 50 years later, the audiences walk out of this theater stunned and knocked out because it is such an unusual experience in the theater now to have a play of this kind of power. It shouldn't be unusual. You know, one would hope that it wouldn't be, but it is.
Why is it, Arthur?
Well, it's a good play, I guess. But
why is it? That's true, but why
isn't anybody else writing?
Yeah, exactly. And writing today.
Well, basically, we've got to remember that a play is a transaction between an author and the audience. It doesn't exist by itself. Novels might, but plays don't. And the audience in 1949 was a demotic audience. That is, everybody was there. I remember seeing policemen in the audience, firemen, school teachers, just ordinary people. Well, it's $60 a ticket now.
Yeah, it's a different situation.
It was $4.40, or later $6.60 or $8.80 or something like that. I think that the audience not being the democratic audience has affected the kind of plays that are written.
That's a very good point.
They feel, writers inevitably will feel, the audience that they know is a more constricted audience.
Smaller group.
As a result, the plays get more constricted. See, what I think strikes me watching you guys up there is the breadth of the whole production. It seems like a full-blown symphony instead of perhaps a song or a recital.
An aria, yeah.
Or an aria. And that doesn't happen all by itself. When I said that it probably wouldn't be produced today, I mean that the audience in a 300-seat theater or a 100-seat theater is a different sound.
Yeah, good point.
You said that he had helped you get a handle. Give me an example.
Well, we were in the rehearsal room, and there was this one particular sequence where I had worked out something that had worked in Chicago and was fine, and Arthur had seen the production in Chicago and liked it. And Bob turned to Arthur and said, "Do you have any notes or ideas?" And Arthur said to me, he said, "Well, there's this particular sequence. Don't ever forget that he has created this sequence in his mind. He can make of that sequence, of those words, of those ideas, anything he wants to, because he's making it up. This is not, you're not required to deliver these lines according to a certain convention, because it's inside your mind." And the minute he said that, I realized that I was missing something, that I was giving something up. I'm still exploring that moment, but I'm getting closer now to what I want it to be. One of the interesting things about playing this part is that within one line, Willie's living in the present, and in the next line, which may or may not be a transition line, he's living in the past. So your responsibility as an actor is to make that thing work. And it's just endlessly fascinating to see how you can do it, or miss, did I get them, did I not get them, and so forth. It's like a wonderful concerto, like a wonderful piece of symphonic music written for the piano. You can change the tempo, you can change the volume, you play the notes. I religiously play the notes. But there are still so many different ways of going, of moving, of playing it, and it never loses its interest for me.
This will never do justice, but here is a clip from Death of a Salesman. Take a look at this.
Why am I always being contradicted?
Well, I thought it would be a surprise.
Why don't you open a window in here, for God's sake?
They're all open
The way
here.
they boxed us in here. Bricks and windows. Windows and bricks!
We should have bought the land next door.
Streets lined with cars. Not a breath of fresh air in the neighborhood. The grass don't grow anymore. You can't raise a carrot in the backyard. They should have had a law against apartment houses! You remember those two beautiful elm trees out there? You know, when I and Biff, we hung the swing between them.
Yeah, like being a million miles from the city.
Should have arrested the builder for cutting those down. They massacred the neighborhood. More and more I think of those days, Linda. This time of year, it's lilac, wisteria, then the peonies would come out, daffodils. What fragrance in this room.
Well, after all, people had to move somewhere.
Oh, no, there's more people now.
I don't think there's more people.
There's more people!
Is this an ongoing experience of interpretation and, as you just seem to say, getting it? You saw that and you said, I've changed that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said before, it's like a wonderful piece of music. I mean, Ashkenazi, when he plays the piano, I'm sure, changes his interpretation. Again, this is a classic. Okay, we're not talking about when you do Chekhov and you do Shakespeare, when you do Arthur Miller, you play the play and you play the words and you play the character. But with a part like Willie, there's all kinds of spaces that allow you to change things and move in different directions and explore things. When does he lose it in this scene? When does he pull back in? When is he soft? When is he loud? What is the tempo? How does the tempo change? Can it change? Should it change? What happens tonight if I do this? That didn't work very well. Maybe I'll go back to that, or maybe I'll go in this direction. And that's, to me, it's like Hamlet. Jonathan Pryce plays Hamlet. Kenneth Branagh plays Hamlet. Gielgud played Hamlet. All these wonderful actors played Hamlet, and of course they all play it differently, and they all play it differently every night, and that's what Willie gives you. It gives you the opportunity to, within the context of his character and within the context of this play, which are, as I said, classics. There still are opportunities to explore different ways, and it's fun doing that.
You have to go to the theater.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Brian. It's a great honor to watch you work, and it's a magnificent performance and a classic, as you say.
Thank you. And a great play. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for that.
Arthur, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to see you again.
Thanks,
Brian.
Ernie.
We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.